Gavin had always believed that every place carried a memory. A house remembered footsteps. A forest remembered voices. A road remembered the people who vanished along it. That belief followed him across America as he traveled from town to town, filming forgotten places for his growing horror channel. Most of the stories he covered were nothing more than local legends. Abandoned schools, empty hospitals, old mines, the usual things people whispered about during long nights. Yet one story refused to leave his mind. It came from a tiny town hidden deep within the wetlands of Louisiana, a place called Red Marsh. The town barely appeared on maps. The population was shrinking every year. Many houses stood empty. Many roads ended in water. When Gavin first heard about Red Marsh, he thought it sounded perfect for his next video. Then he learned about the whistle. According to local stories, a strange whistle rose from beneath the swamp after midnight. Not from the trees, not from the water, not from the wind, from below. People claimed it came from somewhere under the earth itself. The sound was said to drift through the marsh like a living thing, long and low, almost human. Anyone who followed it was never seen again. At least, that was the story. Gavin loved stories like that. They attracted views, they attracted subscribers, most importantly, they attracted curiosity. 3 weeks later, he packed his equipment and drove south. The farther he traveled, the emptier the roads became. Civilization slowly disappeared. Gas stations became rare. Cell service weakened. The air grew heavier. By sunset, he reached Red Marsh. The town looked exhausted. Weather-stained buildings leaned toward the road. Wooden porches sagged under years of neglect. Several storefronts had been boarded shut. Even the trees looked unhealthy. Gray moss hung from every branch like strips of old skin. Gavin parked near the only motel in town. The building seemed older than anything he had ever seen. The sign outside flickered weakly. Half the letters no longer worked. Inside he met the owner, an elderly woman named Martha. Her eyes narrowed when she saw his camera equipment. "You here for the whistle?" Gavin nodded. Her expression immediately changed. Not fear, something deeper. Resignation, like she had heard those words too many times. "You should leave before dark tomorrow," she said. Gavin smiled. "People tell me that everywhere. This time, listen." The conversation ended there. Martha handed him a room key and walked away. That night, Gavin explored the town. Most streets were empty. Very few lights glowed behind windows. The entire place felt abandoned. As he walked, he noticed something strange. No dogs barked. No insects buzzed. No frogs croaked from the wetlands. For a swamp town, the silence felt unnatural. He eventually reached a small diner near the edge of town. Only 3 customers sat inside: an old fisherman, a young waitress, and a man wearing a faded sheriff badge. The sheriff noticed Gavin immediately. "Tourist?" he asked. "Content creator," Gavin replied. The sheriff sighed. "Another one." Gavin sat across from him. "I guess lots of people come looking for the whistle." "Not anymore," the sheriff said. "They used to." The room became quiet. Gavin waited. Then, he finally spoke. 6 people disappeared over the last 10 years. Every one of them came looking for that sound. Maybe they got lost. Maybe they drowned. Maybe something else happened. Nobody knows. You believe the stories. The sheriff looked directly into his eyes. "I believe 6 people never came home." That answer stayed with Gavin long after he returned to the motel. Near midnight, he began reviewing footage. Hours passed. The town outside remained silent. Then he heard it. A whistle. Very faint, very distant. The sound drifted through the darkness. Long, slow, melancholic. Every hair on his body stood up. At first he assumed it was the wind. Then it came again. The exact same note. The exact same length. Too perfect. Too deliberate. Gavin grabbed his recorder and rushed outside. The whistle echoed across the wetlands. Not loud, not soft, just enough to be heard. He followed the sound toward the edge of town. The farther he walked, the colder the air became. Soon the houses disappeared behind him. Only swamp remained. Moonlight reflected across black water. Dead trees rose from the marsh like skeletal hands. The whistle sounded again. Closer this time. Gavin recorded everything. His excitement outweighed his fear. This was exactly the kind of footage he needed. Then he noticed footprints. Fresh footprints. They stretched across the muddy ground ahead. One set, bare feet. Whoever made them had walked straight into the swamp. The trail? The footprints continued farther and farther, until they vanished beneath dark water. No return tracks. Only tracks going in. The whistle rose again. Now it sounded almost directly beneath him. Gavin froze. The sound was wrong. It did not seem to come from ahead, or behind, or above. It came from underground. His flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. At that moment he heard another noise. Splashing. Something moved within the swamp. Not a fish, not an alligator. Something much larger. Gavin slowly turned toward the water. The surface rippled, then became still. Nothing appeared. After several minutes he returned to the motel. Sleep came slowly. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined those footprints leading into the darkness. Morning arrived beneath heavy gray clouds. Gavin spent the day interviewing locals. Most refused to speak. Some walked away immediately. Others became visibly nervous whenever the whistle was mentioned. One elderly man finally shared a story. Long ago there had been another town where the swamp now stood. A larger settlement built during the 1800s. One night, every resident vanished. No bodies, no signs of struggle, nothing. The town simply disappeared. Years later, the marsh swallowed the ruins. People claimed the whistle began shortly afterward, a call from whatever remained below. Gavin loved the story, even if it was only folklore. That evening he prepared for a deeper investigation. He planned to enter the swamp after dark and follow the sound as far as possible. Before leaving, he stopped by the motel office. Martha looked disappointed when she saw his backpack. "You heard it, didn't you?" "Yes." "Then you need to leave." Gavin shook his head. "I came here for answers." Martha stared at him for several seconds. Then she opened a drawer. Inside sat a faded photograph. She handed it to him. The image showed 3 young men standing near the marsh, all smiling, all carrying cameras. "Who are they?" "The first one disappeared 12 years ago. The second disappeared 8 years ago. The third disappeared 4 years ago. Content creators, just like you." Gavin felt a chill. No bodies were ever found. Martha took back the photograph. "The whistle doesn't lure people away," she said. "It calls them home." "Home to what?" She did not answer. Night arrived. Clouds covered the moon. Darkness swallowed the wetlands. Gavin switched on his camera and began filming. His light illuminated only a narrow path through the swamp. Everything beyond remained hidden. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. Then the whistle returned. Louder than ever. Closer than ever. The sound rolled through the marsh like a mournful cry. Gavin followed it deeper. Water reached his ankles, then his knees. Branches scraped against his jacket. The air smelled rotten. After another 20 minutes, he found something unexpected. Stone. A section of ancient stone protruded from the mud. Then another, and another. Ruins, half buried beneath the swamp. The remains of a forgotten town. His pulse quickened. Story had been true. Suddenly the whistle erupted directly ahead. Gavin raised his flashlight. The beam revealed a large circular structure emerging from the darkness. A well. Its stone walls were cracked with age. Black water surrounded its base. The whistle echoed from inside. Not near it, inside it. Gavin approached slowly. Every instinct told him to run. Instead, he leaned over the edge. The darkness below seemed endless. His flashlight could not reach the bottom. Then something moved. Far beneath the well, a pale shape, human-sized, standing motionless in the darkness, watching him. The whistle stopped. Silence filled the swamp. Then a voice rose from the depths. A voice so faint he almost imagined it. Gavin. His blood turned cold. He had never told anyone in Red Marsh his name. Yet something below the well knew exactly who he was. And then dozens of other voices began whispering beneath the earth. Gavin stumbled backward, so fast that he nearly fell into the black water surrounding the ancient well. His flashlight shook violently in his hand. The beam danced across the crumbling stones. The voices below continued whispering, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, soft, broken, overlapping, like countless people speaking through layers of earth. Each voice sounded distant yet impossibly close, as though they were standing directly behind him. Gavin forced himself to look back into the well. The pale figure remained there, far below, motionless, watching. His heart pounded against his ribs. Every instinct screamed for him to leave, but another feeling pushed against the fear. Curiosity. The same curiosity that had carried him into abandoned prisons, forgotten hospitals, collapsed mines. The same curiosity that had built his channel. Slowly, he lifted his camera toward the opening. The display screen showed only darkness. Then, static exploded across the image. White lines crawled over the screen. The device emitted a sharp burst of interference. The battery indicator instantly dropped from 80% to 5. Gavin frowned. That made no sense. He had charged everything before entering the swamp. The whispers suddenly stopped. Complete silence returned. Even the air felt frozen. Then the pale figure moved. Not much, just enough. Its head tilted slightly upward, toward him. Gavin stepped away immediately. Something about the movement felt wrong. Not human. Not natural. The figure seemed to bend in places where no body should bend. Its proportions shifted strangely in the darkness. Not decide what shape it wanted. The whistle returned. This time from directly beneath the figure. A long, sorrowful note that echoed through the ruins. The sound vibrated through the stone beneath his boots. Gavin backed away farther. Then he turned and started moving toward the path he had followed into the swamp. The whistle continued behind him, following him, calling to him. Every few seconds he glanced over his shoulder. The well remained visible through the trees. Then suddenly, it was gone. Not hidden, gone. One moment it stood among the ruins. The next, there was nothing there except swamp water. Gavin stopped walking, his breath caught in his throat. He shined his flashlight toward the area. No well, no ruins, no stone, only dark water and dead trees. The entire scene had vanished. Fear finally overcame curiosity. He hurried through the swamp until the first lights of Red Marsh appeared ahead. When he reached the motel, Martha was waiting outside, as if she had known exactly when he would return. "You saw it," she said. Gavin nodded. "The well." Her face grew pale. "You should leave tomorrow. I found ruins out there." "There are no ruins. I saw them." "No." Her voice trembled. "You saw what wants people to see." Gavin stared at her. "What does that mean?" Martha looked toward the swamp. "The well never stays in one place. Sometimes people find it, sometimes they don't. The ones who follow it too long disappear." Gavin wanted answers. Instead, he received only riddles. Eventually, he returned to his room. Sleep proved impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the voices again, whispering his name, calling from beneath the earth. Near dawn, exhaustion finally pulled him into unconsciousness. The dream began immediately. He stood inside Red Marsh, but the town looked different, newer, larger. The buildings appeared freshly painted. The roads were crowded with people. Children laughed, merchants worked, families walked beneath bright sunlight. Everything felt alive. Then every person stopped moving at once. Thousands of eyes turned toward him. No one spoke, no one blinked. The entire town stared. A whistle drifted through the air. Every resident smiled simultaneously. Then they all began walking toward the swamp, slowly, silently, without hesitation. Gavin tried to stop them, tried to shout, but no sound emerged. The people continued marching. One by one, they entered the dark water. Children, adults, elderly residents, entire families. Nobody resisted. Nobody looked afraid. The swamp swallowed them all. Then the ground beneath Gavin cracked open. A massive hole appeared beneath the town, an endless pit stretching downward into darkness. And deep within that darkness, he saw countless pale faces staring upward, waiting, watching, smiling. Gavin woke, drenched in sweat. Morning sunlight filtered through the motel curtains. His heart still raced. The dream felt more like a memory than imagination. For several minutes, he sat motionless, trying to calm himself. Then he noticed something strange. Covered his boots. Fresh mud. The same black mud from the swamp. That should have been impossible. He had cleaned them before sleeping. Gavin stared at the boots. A terrible possibility entered his mind. Had he left the motel during the night? He checked his camera. Several new video files appeared on the memory card. Files he did not remember recording. His stomach tightened. Slowly he opened the first clip. The footage showed darkness, shaking movement, heavy breathing, his own breathing. The camera pointed toward the swamp. Whoever held it was walking through water. For 20 minutes the recording continued. Then the ruins appeared, the well appeared, and Gavin heard his own voice. Not frightened, not confused, calm, almost hypnotized. The Gavin in the recording stepped toward the well, closer and closer, until he stood directly at the edge. Then the video ended. Gavin immediately checked the timestamp, 3:23 in the morning, while he had supposedly been asleep. A cold knot formed in his stomach. Something was happening to him, something he could not explain. Later that afternoon he visited the town library. The building consisted of only 2 rooms. Most shelves stood nearly empty. An elderly librarian named Helen helped him search local records. When Gavin mentioned the vanished settlement, she became nervous, very nervous. Eventually she led him into a storage room. Dust coated everything. Stacks of old newspapers filled several cabinets. "These aren't supposed to leave this room," she whispered. She handed him a yellowed newspaper, dated 1887. The headline immediately caught his attention. "Entire community missing." His pulse quickened. He continued reading. According to the article, nearly 300 residents disappeared overnight. Search parties found homes untouched, meals still sitting on tables, personal belongings left behind. No signs of violence, no bodies, no explanations. Another article describes strange whistles reported throughout the region before the disappearance. A third article mentioned an excavation beneath the town. Workers had apparently discovered a large underground structure shortly before everyone vanished. Unfortunately, the remaining pages were missing, torn out. Who removed these? Helen shook her head. "Nobody knows. They were gone before I started working here." Did anyone investigate further? A few people tried. None stayed long. The room fell silent. Then Helen leaned closer. "My grandfather lived here. He told me something before he died." "What was it?" She swallowed hard. "He said the people didn't disappear. They went below." A chill ran through Gavin. "Below where?" Helen slowly pointed downward. The gesture felt absurd, yet something about it unsettled him more than any answer could have. That evening, Gavin met the sheriff again. This time the sheriff seemed less interested in dismissing him, perhaps because Gavin looked genuinely disturbed. "You look like hell," the sheriff said. "I think something is happening to me." The sheriff nodded as though he had expected those words. "You hearing voices?" "Yes." "Dreaming about the swamp?" "Yes." "Finding yourself in places you don't remember going?" Gavin stared. "How do you know that?" "Because every missing person reported the same thing." The answer hit like a hammer. The sheriff continued. "At first they hear the whistle. Then they dream. Then they start sleepwalking. Eventually, they vanish. Has anyone ever survived?" The sheriff hesitated. "One person." "Who?" "An old man named Walter Briggs. He lives alone near the northern marsh. Doesn't talk to anyone. Hasn't left his property in 20 years. Gavin immediately decided to find him. The sheriff gave directions. Before sunset, Gavin drove toward the northern wetlands. The road gradually narrowed until it became little more than dirt. Trees crowded both sides. Spanish moss swayed overhead. Eventually, he spotted a small cabin standing beside dark water. Walter Briggs sat outside, watching the swamp. He looked ancient, thin as a skeleton. His face carried the weight of unimaginable years. When Gavin introduced himself, Walter showed no surprise. "You heard the whistle?" Gavin nodded. "Then you're already late." "Late for what?" Walter stared into the distance. "They know you now." "Who?" The old man remained silent for several moments. "The people below." Gavin felt his stomach tighten. "Tell me what happened." Walter sighed. Then he began speaking. Many years ago, he had searched for the whistle exactly like Gavin. Back then he was young, fearless, curious. One night he found the well, the same voices, the same pale figures. Afterward the dreams began, then the sleepwalking, then something worse. "What?" Walter slowly rolled up his sleeve. Gavin immediately. Strange markings covered the old man's arm. Dark, twisting patterns beneath the skin, almost resembling roots or veins, except they moved, slowly shifting beneath the flesh. Gavin felt sick. "What is that?" Walter lowered the sleeve. "A reminder." "Of what?" "That part of me never came back." The old man looked genuinely terrified, even after all these years. "Some nights I still hear them calling. Some nights I wake standing beside the swamp. And sometimes," his voice faltered, "sometimes I remember what lives underneath." Gavin leaned forward. "Tell me." Walter shook his head violently. "No, you don't want that memory. Nobody does." The sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. Darkness gathered across the wetlands. Walter suddenly became agitated. "You need to leave, now." "Why?" "Because the whistle comes earlier every night." At that exact moment, a long, mournful note drifted across the water. The whistle. Walter went pale. "Go." Gavin looked toward the swamp. Something moved among the trees. Tall figures, dozens of them, standing motionless between the trunks, watching. Their bodies appeared pale beneath the fading light. Human-shaped, but impossibly thin. The whistle sounded again. The figures stepped forward simultaneously. Walter grabbed Gavin by the arm. "Run!" For the first time since arriving in Red Marsh, Gavin obeyed immediately. He rushed toward his truck. The figures continued emerging from the darkness. Silent, watching, waiting. Gavin jumped into the vehicle and slammed the door. As the engine started, he glanced back one final time. The pale figures now surrounded the cabin. Walter stood alone among them, expressionless, motionless, almost as though he had expected this moment. Then every figure turned their heads toward Gavin and smiled. Gavin slammed his foot onto the accelerator. The truck lurched forward across the narrow dirt road. His hands trembled so badly that he could barely keep control of the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, the cabin quickly disappeared behind the trees. But the image of those smiling figures remained burned into his mind. Something about them had felt wrong in a way he could not explain. Not merely frightening, Not merely unnatural, wrong, as though they were imitations of people rather than actual people. The whistle followed him through the darkness, long, low, endless. By the time he reached Red Marsh, night had completely swallowed the town. The streets were empty again. No cars, no pedestrians, no sounds. The town seemed dead. Gavin parked outside the motel and immediately searched for Walter's phone number. Nothing. No records, no online presence, no photographs. Almost as if the old man did not officially exist. The more Gavin investigated, the stranger everything became. Then his phone vibrated. A notification appeared. A new comment had been posted beneath one of his recent videos. The account name consisted only of random numbers. The comment contained 4 words: "We are below you." Gavin stared at the screen. Seconds later, the comment vanished, deleted. His blood ran cold. He checked the channel profile. Nothing existed. No videos, no followers, no information. Just an empty account. He spent the next hour trying to convince himself that someone was playing a prank. Yet deep down he knew better. The feeling in his stomach told him otherwise. Around midnight, the whistle returned. This time, it seemed much closer to town, almost as though whatever produced it had moved nearer. Gavin looked outside his motel window. The street remained empty. Then he noticed a figure standing beneath a street lamp. A tall, pale silhouette, motionless, watching the motel. Gavin blinked. The figure vanished. Only empty pavement remained. He grabbed his flashlight and rushed outside. Nothing. No footprints. No movement. No person. Just silence. When he returned to his room, another surprise awaited him. Mud covered the floor. Fresh, wet mud. A trail stretched from the window toward the bathroom. Gavin froze. The window was locked. Nobody could have entered. Yet the muddy footprints clearly existed. Bare footprints. The same ones he had seen near the swamp. The trail ended at the bathroom mirror, and written across the glass in muddy letters were 3 words: "Come below, Gavin." For several seconds he could not breathe. The writing looked fresh. Water still dripped from the letters. He immediately called the sheriff. 20 minutes later, the sheriff arrived. Together they examined the room. The footprints, the writing, the mud. Everything had disappeared. The mirror was clean, the floor spotless. Not a single trace remained. The sheriff looked concerned, but not surprised. "You saw it, didn't you?" Gavin nodded. The sheriff sighed heavily. "It's getting worse." "What is?" "The connection." "Connection to what?" The sheriff hesitated, and finally spoke. "Years ago, my father investigated the disappearances. Before him, my grandfather investigated them. Both heard the whistle. Both started seeing things. Both eventually left town because they were afraid of what would happen if they stayed. You believe something is actually down there." I stopped asking whether I believed it a long time ago. The sheriff looked toward the swamp. "I only know people keep disappearing, and something keeps calling them." The next morning, Gavin returned to the library. Helen was already waiting. She looked nervous, very nervous. "I found something else," she whispered. "What?" She handed him an old journal. The leather cover was cracked with age. The pages appeared fragile. Who wrote it? One of the excavation workers from 1887. Gavin carefully opened the journal. Most pages had faded, but several entries remained readable. The worker described a large underground structure beneath the settlement. Not a cave, not a mine, a city. An enormous city hidden below the earth. According to the journal, the tunnels extended for miles in every direction. Massive stone halls stretched beneath the swamp. The workers found carvings unlike anything they had ever seen. Human figures standing beside giant black shapes. People entering holes in the ground. People emerging changed. One passage caught Gavin's attention immediately. Day 21. The whistles have begun. We hear them every night. The sound comes from beneath the deepest chamber. Several workers now sleepwalk. 2 have vanished. The foreman wishes to continue the excavation. I believe we should seal the entrance and leave. The following entries became increasingly disturbing. Workers reported hearing their names whispered underground. Many claimed they saw dead relatives walking within the tunnels. Some spoke of impossible creatures watching them from the darkness. Then, the final entry appeared. Tomorrow we descend again. Something waits below. It knows our names. It knows our memories. God help us if it reaches the surface. The remaining pages had been torn out. Gavin slowly closed the journal. Neither he nor Helen spoke for several moments. Finally, she broke the silence. You should leave. Everyone keeps saying that, because everyone else ignored the warning. That afternoon, dark clouds gathered above Red Marsh. A storm approached. Heavy winds bent the trees. Thunder rolled across the horizon. Gavin decided to visit the location where the original settlement had supposedly stood. Using old maps from the library, he traced the approximate position. The journey took nearly 2 hours through swamp and forest. Eventually, he reached a stretch of land unlike anything he had seen before. The trees stopped abruptly. A vast circular clearing opened ahead. No plants grew there. No grass, no moss, nothing. Only bare black earth. The ground looked burned, dead, ancient. Gavin stepped into the clearing. Immediately a strange sensation washed over him. Pressure. Like invisible eyes focusing upon him. The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. His camera began malfunctioning again. Static flickered across the screen. The battery drained rapidly. Then he noticed something protruding from the dirt. Stone. He brushed away mud and uncovered a carved surface. Symbols covered the rock. Hundreds of symbols. None resembled any language he recognized. As he continued digging, he uncovered more stone. Then more. Soon an entire structure emerged. A circular doorway built into the ground, half buried beneath centuries of earth. Gavin stared at it in disbelief. An entrance. A real entrance. His pulse quickened. Could this lead below? Thunder exploded overhead. Rain began falling. Yet Gavin could not leave. Slowly he pulled aside more dirt. The doorway revealed a staircase descending into darkness. Cold air drifted upward. Air that smelled ancient, stale, wrong. For several minutes he stood there debating. Every rational thought told him to walk away. Instead, he switched on his flashlight and began descending. The staircase spiraled downward for what felt like forever. The deeper he went, the colder everything became. Soon the sound of rain vanished completely. Only silence remained. The beam illuminated walls carved from black stone. Strange symbols covered every surface. Many depicted human figures kneeling before enormous shadowy forms. Others showed entire towns descending underground. The deeper Gavin traveled, the stronger the pressure inside his head became. Eventually the staircase ended. A tunnel stretched ahead, massive, far larger than any natural cave. His flashlight revealed stone columns disappearing into darkness. The place resembled an underground cathedral, except infinitely older and infinitely larger. Gavin moved carefully. Every footstep echoed for seconds, then minutes. The acoustics made the tunnel feel endless. After nearly 15 minutes, he reached a chamber. The sight stole his breath. A city, an actual city. Ruins filled a cavern so vast that his flashlight could not reveal its boundaries. Stone buildings, roads, bridges, statues. His mind struggled to process the scale. The journal had been telling the truth. This place existed. Then he saw movement. A figure standing far away between the ruins. Tall, pale, motionless, watching him. Gavin raised his flashlight. The figure disappeared. His pulse accelerated. The silence suddenly felt oppressive. Then the whispering began. Soft at first, almost impossible to hear. Then louder. Hundreds of voices, thousands, the exact same voices he had heard inside the well. They drifted through the underground city like wind. Gavin, Gavin, Gavin. His name echoed from every direction. The whispers grew stronger, closer, more desperate. He started moving faster. The voices followed. Buildings emerged from the darkness around him. Ancient doorways, collapsed structures, cracked statues. Every statue had the same face, a smiling face, a face that looked disturbingly human, yet not human enough. Then Gavin noticed something horrifying. The statues were not carved. They had once been people. The details were too perfect, the expressions too real. Every wrinkle, every eyelash, every tooth. Panic surged through him. He backed away and accidentally struck one of the figures. The stone surface cracked. Beneath it he saw flesh, gray, shriveled flesh. A scream escaped his throat. The statue had once been alive. Perhaps it still was. Then every whisper stopped. Silence consumed the city. A new sound emerged. Footsteps. Thousands of footsteps, approaching from the darkness. Gavin slowly turned. At first he saw nothing. Then shapes appeared, hundreds of pale figures walking between the ruins. The same figures from the swamp, the same figures from Walter's cabin. Their smiles stretched unnaturally wide. Their eyes reflected no light. They moved in complete silence, yet their footsteps echoed everywhere. More emerged behind them, then more, then hundreds more. An army of pale watchers, all staring directly at Gavin. The nearest figure opened its mouth and released a whistle, a long, mournful whistle. Immediately, every other figure joined in. The underground city filled with the sound, thousands of whistles combining into one impossible note. The vibration shook the cavern, dust fell from the ceiling, the ground trembled, and somewhere deep beneath the city, something enormous moved. Gavin felt it before he heard it. A distant impact, then another, like gigantic footsteps far below the earth. The pale figures stopped walking. Their smiles widened even further. They looked excited, hopeful, as if waiting for the arrival of something they worshipped. The colossal footsteps grew louder, closer, and for the first time since arriving in Red Marsh, Gavin realized a terrifying possibility. The pale figures were not the real danger. They were only servants. Something much worse was waking up beneath them, and it was coming toward him. The colossal footsteps continued shaking the underground city. Each impact sent vibrations through the black stone beneath Gavin's feet. Dust drifted from the cavern ceiling. Ancient buildings groaned. Cracks spread across roads that had remained untouched for centuries. The pale figures surrounding him stood perfectly still, smiling, waiting, almost worshipping whatever was approaching from the darkness below. Gavin's survival instincts finally overwhelmed his curiosity. He turned and ran. The underground city stretched endlessly around him. Ruined streets blurred past. Broken statues loomed from the darkness. The whistles followed everywhere. Thousands of voices creating one endless haunting sound. The noise echoed through every tunnel, every building, every chamber. It felt alive, like the city itself was singing. Behind him, the footsteps grew louder, closer. Something enormous was ascending. Gavin refused to look back. His flashlight bounced wildly as he sprinted through the ruins. Then he heard another sound. Human voices. Real voices. Not whispers, not whistles. People screaming. The cries echoed from a nearby street. Gavin immediately changed direction. The screams led him toward a cluster of ancient buildings. The closer he approached, the clearer the voices became. Men, women, children, terrified, desperate. He rounded a corner and froze. Dozens of people stood trapped behind black stone bars. A prison. An enormous underground prison. The captives looked terrified, Many wore clothing from different decades, different eras, different time periods. Some appeared modern, others looked like they belonged decades in the past. One man wore clothing that seemed nearly a century old. All of them looked exhausted, pale, broken. Their eyes widened when they saw Gavin. "Help us. Please help us. You have to get us out." The prisoners rushed toward the bars. Hands reached through the gaps, faces pressed against the stone. Gavin could barely process what he was seeing. "Who are you?" One elderly woman began crying. "We followed the whistle, just like you." "How long have you been here?" The answers came from every direction. 5 years, 12 years, 20 years, 8 months, 30 years. Gavin felt his blood turn to ice. That was impossible. None of these people should still be alive. A middle-aged man pushed forward. "Listen carefully. You need to leave now. It's waking up." "What is waking up?" The man's face turned white. "We never learned its name. We only know what it does." The ground shook again, a much stronger tremor this time. Several buildings collapsed in the distance. Screams echoed through the city. The prisoners looked terrified. "It's coming. It's coming." Gavin grabbed the bars. "How do I free you?" The man stared at him sadly. "You can't. Nobody can." Then his expression changed, almost as if he suddenly noticed something behind Gavin. The prisoner's eyes widened with horror. "Run!" Gavin slowly turned around. A pale figure stood only 10 feet away. Its smile stretched from ear to ear. Now he could see it clearly. The thing was not human, not even close. Its skin looked stretched over something that constantly shifted underneath. Bones moved beneath the flesh. Limbs bent incorrectly. Its face seemed unfinished, as though it had copied a human being imperfectly. The creature tilted its head, then spoke. The voice sounded exactly like Gavin's. "Welcome below." Fear exploded through him. He backed away. The creature took a step forward, then another, then dozens of pale figures emerged from surrounding streets. Hundreds of them, blocking every direction. The prisoners began screaming. The whistles returned, louder than ever. Gavin ran. The creatures immediately followed. Their movements looked wrong. They moved too quickly, too smoothly, like puppets being pulled across the ground. The city became a nightmare of twisting streets and endless ruins. Every turn revealed more smiling figures. Every alley contained more watchers. Then Gavin noticed something strange. One of the buildings ahead glowed faintly. A soft blue light leaked from its windows. Unlike everything else in the city. Without thinking, he rushed toward it. The moment he crossed the doorway, the whistles stopped. Silence returned. The pale figures remained outside, watching, but they did not enter. Gavin stared around the room. Ancient carvings covered the walls. In the center stood a massive stone table. Maps covered its surface. Thousands of maps. Some depicted the underground city. Others showed the swamp above. One map immediately caught his attention. Red Marsh. Except something was wrong. Beneath the town, another city appeared. The underground city. Directly beneath every house, every road, every building. The two settlements mirrored each other perfectly. As above, so below. Gavin suddenly remembered something from the journal. The people didn't disappear. They went below. A horrible realization formed. The underground city was not older than the town. The town had been built above it. Whatever existed below had always been there, waiting, watching, calling. Then he noticed writing carved into the stone table. Most symbols were unfamiliar, but one section appeared in English, or something close to English. The letters looked ancient, crude, yet readable. It called from beneath the earth. It borrowed our faces, it borrowed our voices, it borrowed our memories. When enough answered the call, the gate would open, and it would rise. Gavin read the final line. The city below is not a prison, it is a mouth. A violent tremor interrupted his thoughts. The entire structure shook. Several cracks appeared across the ceiling. The blue light flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. Gavin switched on his flashlight, and immediately wished he had not. Something stood across the room. A human figure. At least it looked human, for a moment. Then its shape shifted, its body stretched taller, its arms lengthened, its face rippled like water. And suddenly Gavin recognized it. Himself, creature, now wore his exact appearance. Same face, same eyes, same clothing. A perfect copy. The duplicate smiled. The expression looked horrifying on his own face. You came farther than most. The voice sounded identical. What are you? The smile widened. A memory, a reflection, a beginning. The thing stepped closer. It learns from every person who comes below. Every voice, every thought, every fear. It's almost ready now. What is? The duplicate looked upward, as if staring through miles of stone toward the surface. The one beneath all things. The ground shook violently. This time an enormous roar echoed through the city. Not an animal roar, not even a sound made by anything living. It resembled a mountain breaking apart. The duplicate closed its eyes, almost blissful. It's waking. Then the walls exploded inward. Dozens of pale figures flooded the room. The duplicate dissolved among them, vanishing instantly. Gavin sprinted through a rear doorway. The chase began again. The city around him was changing. Buildings collapsed. Roads split apart. Massive cracks opened across the ground. And from those cracks came darkness. Not shadows, not empty space. Something thicker, something alive. The enormous footsteps now sounded directly beneath him. Every impact felt close enough to stop his heart. Then he saw it, far across the city, a gigantic shape rising from a fissure. At first his mind refused to understand what he was seeing. The thing looked larger than any building. Then entire city blocks. Its body remained mostly hidden beneath darkness. Only fragments became visible. Pale flesh, countless limbs, thousands of human faces fused together across its surface. All smiling, all whispering, all whistling. The sight nearly drove him to his knees. The creature was impossible. A living nightmare larger than reason itself. And it was rising. The pale figures immediately knelt before it, thousands of them. Every watcher bowed. Every whistle became louder. The gigantic mass continued emerging, face after face after face, appearing across its skin. Some old, some young, some ancient, some disturbingly familiar. Then Gavin noticed one face among the countless thousands. Walter Briggs, the old man from the cabin. His face stared from the creature's flesh. Eyes open, mouth smiling. Another face appeared nearby, one of the missing content creators from Martha's photograph. Then another, and another. Every missing person, every victim, every soul taken by the whistle. Part of the thing now, absorbed, consumed, remembered. The truth hit Gavin like a hammer. The creature did not eat people, it collected them. Their memories, their identities, their voices, their lives. Everything became part of it, forever. Then one of the faces opened its eyes and looked directly at Gavin. Not a random face, his face. A perfect copy of Gavin smiling from the creature's flesh, as though it already knew exactly where he belonged. The massive entity released a whistle, unlike anything Gavin had ever heard. The sound shook the entire underground world. The city began collapsing around him. And somewhere, far above, back in Red Marsh, every light in town suddenly went dark. The lights of Red Marsh died all at once. Above ground, the town vanished into darkness. Below ground, the ancient city began to collapse. Stone towers shattered. Roads split apart. Entire sections of the cavern disappeared into widening chasms. And through it all, the gigantic thing continued rising. Its endless collection of faces stared in every direction. Thousands of eyes, thousands of smiles, thousands of stolen lives. The whistle pouring from its countless mouths became deafening. Gavin dropped to one knee. Blood trickled from his ears. His vision blurred. Every face on the creature seemed to be speaking directly into his mind. Memories flooded him. Memories that were not his own. A fisherman vanishing in 1974. A young woman following the whistle in 1988. A hunter disappearing in 2001. One of the content creators from Martha's Photograph entering the swamp at midnight. Hundreds, thousands, entire lifetimes crashed through his thoughts. The creature had not merely absorbed people, it had kept them. Every memory remained trapped inside it. Every victim still existed somewhere within that unimaginable mass. Then another memory struck him. A different memory. One that felt older than all the others. Older than Red Marsh. Older than America. Older than history itself. He saw an ancient civilization living above this very place. People who discovered the underground city. People who descended into its depths. People who found the things sleeping beneath the earth. They worshipped it at first. They believed it possessed infinite knowledge, infinite memory, infinite wisdom. Then the disappearances began. Entire families vanished. Entire villages followed the whistle. By the time the survivors understood the truth, it was too late. The creature had grown too powerful. Unable to destroy it, they created a prison, the underground city itself. A massive labyrinth designed to contain the entity forever. For centuries the prison held. Then humanity forgot. Generations passed. Civilizations rose and fell. The story became legend. The prison became myth. And eventually, people built towns above it, never realizing what slept below. The vision ended. Gavin collapsed against a broken wall, his breathing ragged. The truth felt unbearable. The thing beneath Red Marsh was ancient, far older than humanity, and now it was waking. A section of the cavern exploded nearby. Rock fragments rained across the ruins. The gigantic entity rose higher. Dozens of its faces suddenly turned toward Gavin. Then hundreds, then thousands. Every stolen face looked directly at him. The whistle stopped. Silence spread through the underground city. The creature spoke, not through one mouth, through all of them. The sound shook the world. Gavin, his name echoed across the cavern, across the city, across the darkness itself. Gavin forced himself to stand. The creature continued speaking. You came willingly. You listened. You followed. You belong below. Its countless mouths smiled. Come join us. Thousands of hands began emerging from its flesh. Human hands, stretching toward him, reaching, inviting. Gavin backed away. No. The entity laughed. The sound resembled collapsing mountains. You already carry us. Gavin suddenly remembered the dreams, the sleepwalking, the whispers, the muddy footprints. The thing was right. Part of it had already entered his mind, maybe even before he arrived. Maybe the whistle had been reaching him long before he ever heard the story. Then he remembered the ancient maps, the building with blue light, the warning carved into stone. The city below is not a prison. It is a mouth. A mouth could be closed. The thought struck him instantly. The underground city had not been built merely to contain the creature. It had been built around something. A gate, a seal, a lock. And now the city was collapsing, which meant the seal itself might be failing. Or perhaps it could still be activated. A distant glow caught his attention. Blue light, the same blue light from the ancient building, far across the ruins, near the center of the city. The creature noticed his gaze. Immediately its smiles widened. Do not go there. That answer told Gavin everything. He ran. The gigantic entity roared. The pale figures surged after him. Thousands of them flooded the streets. The city became a nightmare of collapsing stone and endless pursuit. Buildings crashed behind him. Bridges shattered. Roads vanished into darkness. Still, Gavin ran. The blue glow grew brighter. Closer, closer. Then he saw it. A massive circular platform carved into the ground. Ancient symbols covered every inch of its surface. Blue energy flowed through the carvings like liquid light. At the center stood a stone pillar, the city. The pillar emitted a low hum, almost musical, almost alive. The creature screamed. The sound carried genuine fear. "Do not touch it." Gavin sprinted toward the pillar. The pale figures rushed after him, only yards away now, smiling, reaching, hungry. The nearest figure grabbed his shoulder. Gavin spun and shoved it away. Its skin tore open. Instead of flesh, he saw darkness inside, living darkness. The figure collapsed. Another immediately replaced it, then another, then another. The swarm closed around him. Gavin threw himself onto the platform. The blue symbols erupted with light. Every pale figure instantly stopped moving. The creature roared again. The underground city trembled. Gavin grabbed the pillar. The moment his hands touched the stone, another vision exploded through his mind. He saw the ancient builders, thousands of them, standing around this very platform, sacrificing themselves to create the prison, binding their memories together, creating a lock powered by human consciousness itself. The seal could be activated, but only from inside, only by someone willing to become part of it. The realization hit like a knife. There was no escape, no survival, no victory, only a choice. Allow the creature to rise, or replace the ancient guardians keeping it trapped. Tears filled Gavin's eyes. For the first time since arriving in Red Marsh, he felt completely alone. The creature sensed his understanding. Its voice softened, almost gentle. "You do not need to do this. Live forever. Never be forgotten." Gavin looked toward the countless faces covering its body. Walter, the missing tourists, the missing creators, generations of victims, all trapped forever. That was not immortality. It was imprisonment. The thing extended thousands of hands toward him. "Join us, Gavin." The platform shook violently. Cracks spread across the pillar. The seal was failing. There was no time left. Gavin closed his eyes and made his choice. The moment he accepted it, the blue symbols erupted across the city. Light surged through every street, every building, every tunnel. The creature screamed. For the first time, its confidence vanished. "No." The word thundered through the cavern. "No." The blue energy expanded outward. The pale figures began dissolving, one after another. Their smiles vanished. Their bodies crumbled into dust. The entity thrashed violently. Entire sections of its flesh disintegrated. Thousands of trapped faces suddenly opened their eyes, not smiling anymore. Relieved, free, Gavin felt the pillar pulling at him, pulling away his memories, his experiences, his identity. He understood what was happening. He was becoming part of the seal, replacing the guardians who had held the prison closed for centuries. The process hurt more than anything he had ever experienced. Names disappeared first, faces followed, moments from childhood, friends, family. Everything slowly drifted away. The creature continued screaming. Its gigantic body sank downward, back into the abyss from which it had emerged. The city shook violently. Blue light consumed the darkness. The seal was closing. The prison was rebuilding itself, and Gavin was becoming part of it. His final memories began slipping away. He could barely remember who he was, barely remember why he had come. One thought remained, one final thought. At least nobody else would hear the whistle. Then even that memory faded. The creature vanished beneath the abyss. The seal closed, silence returned, and darkness swallowed everything. 3 months later, life slowly returned to Red Marsh. The strange whistle stopped completely. No new disappearances occurred. For the first time in decades, the town felt normal. The sheriff noticed it immediately. So did Martha. So did every resident. Something had changed. Something important. Yet nobody could explain what. One rainy afternoon, Martha cleaned an old storage room inside the motel. While moving boxes, she discovered a camera memory card. Dust covered its surface. She had never seen it before. Curious, she inserted it into a computer. Hundreds of video files appeared, all belonging to someone named Gavin. Martha frowned. The name sounded vaguely familiar, almost remembered, almost forgotten. She watched the final recording. The footage showed darkness, then a distant blue light, then static. The recording ended abruptly. Martha stared at the screen. A strange sadness filled her chest, as though she had forgotten someone important, someone brave, someone who had saved something. Outside the motel, rain continued falling. The swamp remained silent, echoed through the wetlands. No voices whispered beneath the earth. Far below Red Marsh, hidden beneath layers of stone and darkness, an ancient prison stood sealed once more. At its center, a single figure watched over the gate, a silent guardian made of blue light, motionless, eternal, forgotten by the world above, yet still standing, still protecting, still listening. And deep within the darkness beyond the gate, a distant voice occasionally whispered one name, Gavin, but the guardian never answered.